Hello, I'm Bob Harris. As you can see, there's a wide variety of saw cutting equipment with diamond blades to complement the equipment. Now, each of these tools has a very specific task for that type of environment that you're cutting. We're going to be cutting over the top of a micro-topping. A couple of considerations: when you're working inside in someone's home, you have to capture the airborne dust particulate. Number one, it's harmful to breathe. When you breathe excessive cement dust, it could really affect your lungs and cause silicosis. So you really want to control the dust, the airborne dust particulate. So one way that we can do that with this little saw is it has a vacuum recovery system. As you can see, it has a bag that's attached. And inside of this shroud, the center of the shroud is the blade, the diamond blade. It has what we call an impeller. And as it's cutting, the impeller is literally forcing the dust into the vacuum recovery bag. Very effective for cutting straight lines, very fast. We use this tool quite frequently. One of my favorite tools is the 4-inch angle grinder. I call this my artist brush because really there's nothing that can't be achieved with this tool when it comes to decorative score cutting. And there's a wide variety of diamond blades. You can see here we have what's called a continuous diamond blade, a continuous rim diamond blade. And when we use the term diamond blade, what that means is there's thousands of little tiny diamonds that have been embedded into a metallic or a metal matrix. So the metal is holding the diamonds. So you want to use a good quality diamond blade. And the reason for that is if you use a low quality diamond blade and you're trying to cut precision decorative cuts, unfortunately it could skip or chatter and even fracture the concrete. Now, another good tip when using a diamond blade is you want to make sure that you precondition the blade prior to using that. And so what I mean is when you buy a brand new blade, what I like to do is I'll get a cinder block, a piece of old concrete, or a brick, and I'll just make a bunch of cuts, maybe 1 minute worth of cuts, because a brand new blade has not exposed the diamonds. The diamonds is what does the cutting. And so when you use a brand new blade and start cutting, it's the metal and it'll tend to skip or chatter. So precondition your blade. Another blade on a 4-inch grinder is what we call a crack chaser, okay? And you can see it comes to a V. It's a V groove. Now this blade is really designed for chasing existing cracks in a pre-existing concrete floor, widening it out with the intentions of filling it back with some type of an epoxy or polyurea to do crack repair. However, we also use this type of a blade for decorative score cutting too. We want a nice wide blade. It typically will cut, depending on how deep you go, anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch wide in a V curve, which is real nice, and then come back and grout it as one alternative. All the way down to a little 2-inch blade. This is a very effective blade. I don't recommend using this blade for cutting straight. You would always use one of these tools or this tool here for cutting straight lines. But it is really great for cutting tight little arcs and radiuses, or maybe a vine or some flowers, something like that. This is great for cutting that. It does take some getting used to. It's a little hard to use because of the extension. But it's real easy to use. It fits on most standard arbors here, and it simply screws on and screws right off onto a standard arbor size. As you can see, it matches the threads. And you just give it a light tighten. That's it. It's ready to use. This is a great little tool. This tool is really specifically designed for cutting circles. However, you can also cut straight lines with it by putting the little guidelines down. And these little guidelines would simply follow the chalk line as you go right along. It has a vacuum attachment, so you would want to connect the vacuum hose to capture that airborne dust particulate. And the way that this works, it has what we call a pivot point, and the pivot point screws into the side of the saw, which we're going to demonstrate in just a moment. Another saw that we use on a very regular basis is what we call a cutoff saw. Now this is a 10-inch diamond blade. This is what we call a segmented blade, meaning it's not continuous metal, okay? It has little grooves. And really the reason that the grooves are in there is it helps cool the blade. It keeps the diamond blade cool because it allows air to get in there and it keeps the diamonds cool. That's the big thing, is you want to keep the diamonds cool depending on the media that you're cutting. So let's show you how it works. This would typically be used for our stamped concrete or exterior 4-inch thick concrete. Here's a good example of how this quick cut tool works, quick cut saw. It's great for stamped concrete. Typically, you want to get in preferably within 12 to 14 hours from the time that you poured your stamped concrete. Any longer than that, especially in warm, windy conditions, the concrete can go through intrinsic strains and stresses and micro crack. So the sooner that you can cut it without raveling the edge is much better. What I like to do is I like to go ahead and put a straight edge down and just score cut it first, remove the straight edge, and then go ahead and saw cut it a quarter the slab's depth. So in this case, we're say 6 inches, so a quarter would be 1.5 inches thick, deep for the cut.